Hi, welcome to Culture Shock. So I've been having a bit of an adventure these last couple of weeks with an executive team, a group of senior leaders inside an organization whom individually I really rate. I mean, smart people, high IQ, high intellect, lots of capacity, lots of natural talent, and therefore, you know, are like a really sort of fantastic group of people to put together, but who haven't been operating that way. And it occurs to me that or they're not getting the results that they should be getting. And it occurs to me that that's kind of more normal than it should be. And maybe we need to be addressing that. See, there's a particular dynamic that takes place on top of an organization where when the executive team, when the senior leadership team is gelling well, one of the things that I think they're doing is they are helping each other become better leaders. They've recognized that individually they are playing a part they have a role to play in developing a really great world-class team, and that team is responsible for driving strategy, but more importantly perhaps for driving culture. And so it's really important that they each play a part. It's really important that they each help each other to develop, and where they see lackings or failings in each other, that they help to build those things up. Where they see strengths, that they start to capitalize on those. And that ultimately what they end up as is a team that is so much more than the sum of its parts. More often, however, that's not what happens. In the case of this particular team, it's the lesser of two evils, actually. The greater of two evils is an executive team that spends all of its time together and is totally divorced from the organization. In other words, they are maybe a very strong leadership team with leadership capabilities and talents and training, but there's no real connection to the actual day-to-day of the organization. They see themselves as leading generically, whether it's a hotel group or a car company or a pharmaceutical company. That kind of divorce has already taken place, and so there's not a great deal of confidence, I think, generally. Within the organization and the leadership team like that, that's where culture starts to break down in particular. So that's a greater of two evils. The lesser of two evils is what's taking place here, though, where you've got these smart people who recognize their role as leaders, but the way they see it, the team that they are a part of, is the one that forms the vertical that they sit on top of. In other words, if you're in charge of IT, they see themselves, their team, as being the IT team. If they're in charge of HR, they see their team as being the HR team. And so what they're doing is they're getting together as an executive team every now and then to talk things through, but they're not seeing that team as their team, as their number one priority. And there's a challenge there, because while that's the case, you've got an immediate sort of challenge to culture, an immediate challenge to having one strong cohesive strategy, because they're not working closely enough on that to build each other up. And so you've got different levels of strength within the executive team, different levels of capability, and the whole thing just feels spotty. It doesn't feel like one sort of super smooth world-class team running the organization. It feels like that area runs quite well, but this area doesn't run quite as well. Your job as leaders of the organization is to prevent that, to have a much more sort of cohesive team. And that means that doesn't mean you lose responsibility for the vertical you sit on top of, for the silo, if you like. You can't lose responsibility for that, of course. You're still ultimately in charge. But it does mean that in order to spend more time focusing on creating a really strong team to drive culture and to drive the strategy inside the organization, you have to delegate more. You have to create more bench strength within the organization, more levels of leaders, make sure your succession planning within that silo is much stronger, so that you can run it without having to constantly be involved in it. And your greater level of involvement as an executive will be within that executive team. Always bearing in mind that the reason for the executive team in the first place is to guide the organization as a whole. When you start to get that stuff right, that's when you start to see organizations running very well. And there's lots of examples of that. So that's what I've been working with this particular executive team, is to get them to a point where they see their primary responsibility as being to one another in pursuit of a greater organization. Of being a great organization. So it's an interesting one, this. I don't think there's anything like enough emphasis put on this, frankly. I don't think enough. I'm not sure there's a training course anywhere in the world that would take an executive team and teach it how to be a great executive team. I think we teach executives how to be great in isolation as individuals, as opposed to being parts of a team. And I think that's probably what's lacking. I think that's probably why this has gone wrong. So it's really, really interesting to me. And I think the reason I bring this up very simply is just some food for thought for you this week. If you have an executive team, if you are a member of an executive team and it's not really gelling, one of the questions you should ask yourself is, what are the fundamental relationship between the members of that executive team? Are you ships that pass in the night? Are you sewing each other's pockets and you're just not ever really able to see what else happens inside the organization? Or can you optimize that to be a group of people who spend real quality time together developing each other so that you can run a really great organization? I think if you think of it like that, you might actually find that some of the culture problems, some of the challenges to culture inside the organisation might just start to go away. Food for thought for me. I hope it's food for thought for you. And I wish you a great week.